Hello, welcome back. Today I'm going to finish reading Chapter 9 of my book, Sparrowmancer. This book is available at Amazon. Perhaps I should say from or on Amazon. Either way, all my books are available there. There are 7. They are not all part of the same series. And I've just finished my 8th book. It doesn't have a title yet. I'm in the editing phase, but it is a novelette. I introduce some new characters that I think you will like. But today, let's spend our time with Sparrow and Machook. Picking up right where we left off last time. Sparrow had seen this model before, a glitter girl. It was twice the size of Uncle, painted green and deep purple, with twin 78mm particle cannons on articulated scapular turrets. The number 45 was stenciled on it. Sparrow looked up as it fired again. The force of the impact pushed him into the sod. He was glad he'd turned off his pain receptors. He rolled over, stood up, charred and tattered, smoke pouring off him. Much of his endoskeleton was exposed now. Sparrow was tired, but he forced himself to move. Fear howled through him. He rolled, levered himself up, and dashed into the street. The glitter girl followed him, its DEWs barking. All of him said, no. Every system wanted to shut down, but he dodged the incoming particle blasts. He remembered his schematics: CFRP jump rods, strike assist hydro pneumatics, magno-rheological shock dampers. As the platform approached, nimble on its 4 crab legs, Sparrow knelt and switched modes. It was easy. He'd been made to do it. His knees clicked and released, sending him hurtling toward the plat much faster than he'd expected. He tucked at the last second, bounced off it, and dropped, flailing to the ground, where the plat tried twice to stomp on him. He rolled out from under it and fell back. A distortion crackled across his systems, and he almost shut down. But he could fight it, so he would. There could be no consideration beyond necessity. The glitter girl spun on its reversible ankles. Sparrow heard the telltale purr as it switched from particle cannons to cluster rockets. He knelt and leaped again, away from the plat this time, trying to foil its targeting computer. Rockets roared, and Sparrow jumped once more to avoid them. One caught him, and he went down hard on the street. He skidded, and he wanted to stay down, but that didn't matter. There was no wanting now. It took most of his strength to get to his feet again. When he had, He started limping toward the plat as it homed in on him. He scanned it and ran a trajectory. When it fired from its second pod, Sparrow dropped into the deepest crouch he could manage and launched himself high and far. He cleared the spinning swarm of rockets by the length of one toe, spotted his landing atop the platform's pentagonal control module, and stuck it. Then he cocked back his fist and started pounding at the platform's ceramic composite armor. Air hissed from Sparrow's shoulder as he fired his strike assist mechanisms. Cracks started to form in the platform's cladding. Shredded skin hung from Sparrow's knuckles. The platform rocked, trying to shake him to the ground. A rocket pod came off, and then a particle cannon. Sparrow started to see circuitry. If this plat's power plant weren't deep in its guts, accessible only after removing its motivator, he could pop it right now and be finished. But Sparrow spent so long trying to punch through to the control core that the plat was finally able to buck him. Then it stepped on him and leaned forward, putting all its weight on everything below his neck. One arm was pinned, and he beat in vain on the plat's foot with his free hand. The pressure mounted, leaping up until Sparrow thought he would shatter. It would have been a mercy if he had. But he stayed whole and trapped under the Glitter Girl's tremendous mass. Then Sparrow saw Machuk. Her face was not a mask of terror this time. Now it was a rictus of determination and strain. She was trying to lift the Glitter Girl's fallen cannon. Sparrow didn't think she could do it, but the gun was rising. Machuk tilted the cannon's barrel back as far as she could, screaming now with the effort, and stepped on the manual firing switch. The cannon fired one packet of charged particles into the platform's right rear leg joint. The shot blasted through the joint cuff and severed the leg at the plat's flat body, causing the Glitter Girl to topple. The recoil knocked Machuk flat, and as he struggled to get up, Sparrow heard her sobbing. The Glitter Girl tried to stand, but, unlike Sparrow had in the Dead City, it couldn't compensate for its lost appendage. Sparrow remembered the day he'd lost his leg, and the nights he'd spent afterward wishing he were nothing. He heaved himself up from the asphalt crater in which he felt rooted. He was barely thinking anymore, but he knew he had to get to the plat's gun. Disruptions besieged his systems, automated commands to go into stasis, but he overrode every one. Nothing in him was broken, but he was rocked. His optics were glitching. He tried to blink, but he had no eyelids. Most of the skin on his head was gone. It was probably lying on the street in a messy lump with his beard hair bristling out of it. The platform hauled itself around to face Machuk. Sparrow scrambled on all fours to reach the fallen particle cannon, feeling more like an animal than a man or a machine. He took the cannon up, pressed all its hot weight against his side, and held the firing switch until he couldn't bear the recoil anymore. The glitter girl danced, caught fire, fell apart. Its rocket pods sagged, and its armor dropped off like scales. Sparrow could see its power plant glowing through its shattered housing. He would leave it where it was. He dropped the particle cannon and went to Machuk's side. "We're not done," he said. His words fell out wrong now that he had no lips to shape them. "Machuk, you saved me, but we're not done. Get up." He knelt beside her. She sat up and embraced him. Her hand was bleeding, and he held it. "I did it," she said, panting. "It was so heavy. Is the machine dead?" "It's dead," Sparrow replied, "but we're not. So we have to go." They helped each other up. Now that the platform was down, they could hear the avatars of Galhoth singing again. Groups of them emerged onto the street. Sparrow and Machuk returned to the littered garden, where the menhir was still standing. That was like a miracle. Sparrow decided to think of it as one. That seemed right in his foggy state. "Are there more of those things?" Machuk asked as she dropped against the remains of the garden wall. She kicked her feet out in front of her and sat as if her bones had turned to liquid. "There are always more," Sparrow replied. Once he'd remembered which step of the summoning ritual he'd been working on, he picked up where he'd left off and completed the last 2 incantations. All of his power left him when it was finished. Every capacity was utterly gone. He fell onto his back and watched the sky as it began to ripple. Rain started and stopped. Light appeared, veil thin and limpid clear. Thunder rolled without lightning. Something exploded far away. A gas line, maybe. Sparrow hoped that was all it was. "It's working," Machuk said. Sparrow could barely hear her. "I hope that's a good thing." Sparrow had no power to reply. He could only stare straight up as the summoning unfolded. The avatars stopped singing, turned north, and stood motionless. A goddess came out of all the air from the sky down, slanting into existence on crystal beams. Sparrow watched her walk across the hotel district. She was miles high and had 2 wheel-crowned heads, one with flowing golden hair and one with a bald pate covered in spikes. Each head had 3 faces, all of them horrific. She stepped over whole burrows, and the avatars of Galhoth disintegrated before her. So did the tentacles winding through the city. Sparrow thought he would blink out, watching her. His power source was reading critical. System failures sent alarms through his mind. New knowledge of what he was had given him a depth of self-awareness he'd never thought possible. It was nerve-wracking now. Machook crawled to his side and cradled his head, and he didn't fade to black. Instead, his systems began to stabilize. "She's beautiful," Machook said, staring up at the goddess. "She's beyond that," Sparrow managed to say. "She's beyond everything." Machook smiled and looked down at Sparrow. What did his eyes look like to her now? Was she afraid of his naked face? "I don't know what's going to happen," she said. "Thank you for saving Lomep and me from the savages." "How did you know how to fire that cannon?" Sparrow asked. "I just tried the first thing that looked like a handle." Sparrow couldn't smile, but he thought about it. The command to smile occurred in his brain, but there was nothing on his face to comply with it. "Am I ugly?" he said. "No," Machook replied. "Thank you." The goddess stopped. She was far away. Sparrow could only see her heads and her 6 arms. The air became cold, and he shivered against Machook until he turned down his temperature sensitivity. The sky changed color: pink, purple, green, gold. For a moment, everything stood on a bubble. The cosmos could break open and disappear. Nothing would last to remember any of it. Then that feeling resolved, and the goddess spoke. "Stand and depart, Galhoth," she said, with 4 of her mouths. Galhoth rose from his city throne. The air began to change again. Machook helped Sparrow stand. He was happy to find his strength returning, but he was still unsteady on his feet. "Since we're not dead," Machook said, "we should leave." They started east, creeping back the way they came, resting when they needed to. Galhoth and the goddess started arguing. Their voices boomed across Yim, shaking broken bridges down. Buildings collapsed, and streets fell into subway stations. The wall around West Yim shook apart. When the gods started to battle, fires erupted in the industrial district. The sky above the city swirled open like an eye. It took Sparrow and Machook a long time to get back to the gate through which they had come. Whence they finally reached it and started cutting toward the north ruins. West Yim was quaking apart. The 6-faced goddess battled Galhoth for 17 days. West Yim collapsed into rubble. Dust billowed from the wreck long after the deities had disappeared. The gods left nothing intact. Still the Naveb returned. Sparrow and Machook stayed in the northern ruins until they had regained most of their strength. They couldn't let the Naveb see their new champion's real face. They ate canned food and slept in a refrigerator box against the side of a crafts store. One of the pharmacies they found still had a lot of medicine left in it. The Naveb hadn't raided it because someone had piled dead bodies in the building. Gone people, skeletons now, dressed in all manner of clothing. Sparrow wondered what it had been like in Yim when the collapse was happening. What had this city been called then? From time to time, Sparrow had seen names on gone signs, but he never knew what they referred to. Not long after he started to feel better in the North Ruins, he decided that he didn't want to think about the gone world ever again. You may be a gone thing yourself, Machuk told him. Maybe I was, Sparrow replied, but not anymore. Once the Naveb began to re-enter the West City, Machuk and Sparrow went down to the beach to get his hoverbike. It was undisturbed, and he was embarrassingly happy to see it. It represented movement, and he wanted to move. But there was no going back to Yim. He asked Machuk to come with him, but she wanted to stay. I need the Naveb, she said. I want to get word to Aurel of what's happened, and I want to go back there as soon as I can. The Naveb lands are where I belong, and you need to be alone. It's the right decision, Sparrow said. But what makes you think I need to be alone? I have been for most of my life, but not by choice. And not because I travel so much either. Loneliness just finds me. You're not lonely, Sparrow. Machuk put her bandaged hand on his. They were on the beach, watching the ocean. It breathed like an animal. Waves carried its pulse to the shore. Somewhere in its depths, maybe there was something like a living heart. You're part of solitude. That's your place in the world. And the Naveb lands are my place in it. Sparrow crossed his arms. He imagined that idea, floating on the ocean like a boat with a tall white sail. It bobbed and dipped, but it didn't capsize. It mastered the water. Sparrow accepted it. You're right, he said. He bade farewell to Machuk. Just as Toa had months ago, she kept his divining charm at his behest, something to remember him by. He could make another, and he did, before he left the beach. He installed new fuel cells in his hoverbike and camped far away from Yim. When he started east again, the Naveb were just beginning to rebuild their settlements in the destruction. He hoped they were healthy now, free of Golhoth's influence, and that Machuk would find her way back to Aurel someday. Thus ends chapter 9. I hope that the birds nesting above me have not been too distracting today. Thank you, as ever, for listening, and I will see you in the next video.